The Mexican Grand Prix was a bit of a snooze fest as the frontrunners struggled to overtake through the track's winding corners and chicanes. Still, there was plenty of action at the back of the pack as Danny Ric shoved Yuki Tsunoda out of the race to get a very controversial P7. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Tsunoda's reaction to the incident and a frantic quali for the Australian, so keep watching. First up, Yuki's furious radio call after the incident. Heading into the Mexican GP, there wasn't much at stake, especially for the top teams. Both the Constructors and Drivers' Championships have already been decided, and unless Ferrari literally crumbles apart, Mercedes isn't going to overtake them either. That said, there's still plenty to go for lower down the order as McLaren fights Alpine for P4 and AlphaTauri finds itself in a four-way fight for P6. So understandably, their drivers were also pushing hard to get as many points as possible. But the thing is that Mexico isn't exactly a place that's built for overtaking, and as a result, most of the battles we saw got pretty scrappy. Tsunoda and Ricciardo, for instance, had a coming together on lap 51 as the Honey Badger was trying to tear his way through the field with a fresh pair of soft tires. Now, we don't blame him for going for a lunge, cause clearly the Japanese driver had left a slight gap. Also, Yuki had been defending brilliantly since the start of the lap, adding to the Australians' frustration. At the same time though, turn 6 isn't really known for producing overtakes, so the pair made contact, launching Tsunoda into the air and right off the racetrack. Of course, he was very angry, and rightfully so. After all, his race had just ended due to a broken floor and rear suspension. Oh, and he was pretty vocal about it too. Quote, "What the F is he doing?" he yelled on the team radio while limping back to the pits, and honestly, that reaction was warranted. Up next, Tsunoda rues a missed chance. Even though the Japanese drivers improved a lot this season, especially after a pretty bad rookie year, he still hasn't had the best of luck. And this race was no different. Up until the point of the incident, he was driving super well. Plus, he was pretty much on track to win some much-needed points for his team, so it was a shame to see him bow out of the Grand Prix through no fault of his own. Oh, and guess what? That's exactly what he said during his post-race interview as well. Speaking at the media pen after the race, Tsunoda applauded the team for nailing the car's setup. In fact, according to him, his afternoon was going quote-unquote super good. What's more, his racecraft was on point too, as he looked like a man possessed during that first stint on soft tires. But of course, none of that actually meant anything, cause at the end of the day, he returned to the paddock with a DNF. The Japanese driver said that it was a missed chance and that they really could have bagged some valuable points here. That said, he was pretty frustrated at Ricciardo for his risky maneuver. He said it was kinda shocking to see how the Honey Badger could even attempt something like that, and he believed the move was always gonna fail cause it's almost impossible to overtake at turn 6. Still, the Aussie decided to send it without giving it much thought. What's more, Ricciardo doesn't feel bad about his lunge. Now, the AlphaTauri driver seemed pretty puzzled at Danny Ric's futile attempt at overtaking him, but even more than that, he couldn't believe the amount of damage he got to his car from such minimal contact. But again, that's just Formula 1, and sometimes these frustrating things can happen. Ricciardo, on the other hand, wasn't fazed by Yuki's comments at all. Speaking to the press after the race, the McLaren driver admitted that he felt kinda bad for the contact during the race. After seeing the contact footage on the replays though, he says he doesn't feel as bad anymore. According to him, you obviously never want any contact on track, especially if it results in the other driver going off the track. So he had some mixed feelings in the cockpit, which is why he accepted the penalty as well. That said, the 33-year-old believes it wasn't entirely his mistake either, and that Tsunoda should have been a bit more vigilant in turning into him like that. Coming up, the McLaren driver explains his thought process. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda wasn't the only person who was taken aback by Ricciardo's dive bomb. In fact, most analysts were also talking about the incident and blaming it on the Australian. Besides, there's a reason why he got a 10-second penalty after. Thankfully though, he was ready to stand up and explain why he went for the move at turn 6. According to him, it wasn't meant to be an overtake at all. Instead, he just wanted to challenge the Japanese driver and keep him on his toes. What's more, the 33-year-old said that while he's ready to take responsibility, he doesn't think it's his fault at all. Why? Well, for starters, he didn't miss the apex or lockup during the turn, so he knew what he was doing, and in his head, it was supposed to play out perfectly for him. He then explained that he was trying to push Yuki a little wide coming out of the exit to get get him off the racing line. Now, if you don't know, going off the racing line means that you're going to lose some traction as the track starts accumulating tiny debris. Tsunoda going wide would have made him dirty his tires, compromising his exit, and as a result, the Honey Badger would have passed him on the run-up after turn 6. To be fair to Danny Rick, this doesn't actually sound like a bad plan at all. Then again, you can't expect the other driver to behave exactly like you want them to either. That said, the incident didn't compromise his race as he finished P7 despite the penalty. Now for Ricciardo's best quali result in 5 races. Much like the race itself, Mexico's quali session was also a bit of a mixed bag. We saw Max Verstappen dominate the standings as he opened up 0.3 of a second on George Russell in P2. Things weren't as positive as Verstappen's former teammate Ricciardo, however, as he narrowly failed to make it into Q3. But you know what's surprising? Despite getting knocked out in Q2, this P11 was still his best quali position in almost 5 Grand Prix. Now, we don't know about you, but that just shows how bad the Honey Badger's been this season, and judging by this run of form, it's not a surprise that he doesn't have a seat for next year. That said, you can't say anything bad about his race, because despite the incident with Tsunoda, he was still one of the best drivers out there on the track. In fact, he even got voted as the driver of the day by fans. Following up, the Aussie opens up about his mental struggles. Ricciardo's time at McLaren hasn't been easy by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not like the team has managed to find a solution either. If anything, the season has only gone downhill for him, and according to him, being stuck in mediocrity has started to eat him from the inside. The Honey Badger opened up about his struggles with the papaya orange car and said that it's been very difficult to deal with. He said that he's lost all of his confidence driving a car that wouldn't dance with him and instead would just bite back. Plus, whenever he feels like he's found a solution, some new challenge pops up. So there's definitely a bit of sadness inside him cause, well, it gets to you. Oh, and things got so bad at one point that he actually didn't even want to show up anymore. He'd be reluctant if someone invited him out to dinner or something, but that's when he decided to see a psychologist, and since then, things have been a bit better. Finally, Ricciardo weighs in on McLaren's unexpected decision. Now, even though the Aussie has been struggling for the past couple of years, no one actually expected McLaren to axe him at the end of his season. Like, he's still a driver with a ton of ability and legacy under his belt. What's more, even he admitted that the decision came as a bit of a surprise. Speaking to the press after his quali session, the 33-year-old said that he expected his time at McLaren to extend by at least another year, cause that's when the deal would have run out. Plus, you can't really prepare for a situation like this either, which is why he didn't have a seat already lined up for 2023. But he also confessed that this has been an ongoing dialogue between him, Zach Brown, and Andreas Seidel to see what they could do to improve things. So it was a concern on both sides. What do you think though? Was McLaren too quick to pull the trigger with Ricciardo? Let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this one. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.